Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Anita Singh, and I work at Blinkist. And I'm really excited to be back at Android Makers this year. Today, we are going to learn about the basics of the Android styling system and material theming so that we can have a full, complete big picture of how to style our apps most effectively in 2019. So without further ado, let's dive in. So why are we even talking about the Android styling system? Is there a problem? When it comes to styling, you have a lot of choice, but this can also cause some confusion. For example, you may use a style, a theme, a text appearance, a theme overlay, a default style, which might be applied even if you don't do anything. Material theming, which when I first learned about it, I was kind of confused. Is this the same thing as material design 2, a material component? Does it have anything to do with the good old Android theme? And the fact that makes it all the more confusing is that they all use the style tag. So they're defined in exactly the same way. So you have something called a theme and a style, but a theme is a style. And the truth is, yes, they are all styles. However, they differ in how they're applied, what they're applied to, and the attributes that they support. And we're going to learn about these details for each of these styling techniques, starting with the style. It is the basic building block of styling on Android. It is a key value store where the key is known as an attribute, and the value is what we provide in the style. It also specifies the look of only a single view. So if you apply a style to a view group, it's only going to apply it to the view group. It's not going to apply to all of the child views, whereas there are other styling techniques, such as the theme, that will apply it to the child views as well. The style is not one of them. So let's take a look at an example of a good old style. This style is inheriting from another style, so styles can inherit from each other. And then Android:text color and Android:font family are the keys to this key value store. Therefore, they are the attributes. And the values is what we provide, which is color white and Serra Pro Bold in this case. And then we can apply the style using the style attribute on a view or anything that extends a view. So when should you use a style? When I first learned about styles, I thought it was a nice way to clean up layout XML and keep it neat and encapsulate all of the styling in one place. That does not scale well. I recommend that you only extract out styles if it is being used in more than one place and in more than one logically related component. And I say logically related component because you might have a card view and a dialog that have the same values for some of the attributes. But if you apply the same style to both of them in the future, when you go to update the style of a card view, it's going to affect the look of the dialog. And unless that is exactly what you want, you probably don't want them to share the same style. So it is perfectly valid to have multiple styles with the same values, with the same attributes, but they're being applied to different views. We want to avoid unintended side effects. So this wraps up learning about the basic building blocks of the Android styling system, which is the style. Let's now move on to text appearance, which is another styling technique that you can only apply to a text view or a view that extends a text view, such as a button or an edit text. It is text-specific styling that only works at the character level and not the paragraph level. So it does not care about attributes like line height, max lines, hyphenation frequency, etc. And I know for sure that I have put max lines in a text appearance before, and I was wondering why it wasn't working. Well, now we know why. So let's take a look at an example of a text appearance. It contains attributes at the character level, and at this point, you can apply this either as a style or a text appearance, but in order to apply it as a text appearance, we're going to use the Android:text appearance attribute to do that on a text view or a view that extends a text view. So when should you use a text appearance? If you have a style that has a bunch of text-related attributes and non-text-related attributes, it's generally a good idea to extract out the character-level attributes into a text appearance, because when you see Android:text appearance set on a text view, you know exactly what's going on. Also, text appearances are only dynamic style, so you can do textView.setTextAppearance at any point after inflation, whereas there's no such thing as .setStyle. You have to provide that at inflation time. So if you extract it out into a text appearance, if you want to apply it programmatically in the future, you can do that. And if you're only styling text at the character level anyway, you might as well just extract a text appearance instead of a style. And again, you only want to extract out text appearances if it's being used in more than one logically related component. So this wraps up learning about two styling techniques, style and text appearance, that only apply to a single view. Let's now learn about a styling technique that also applies to the child views, and this is known as a theme. It can be applied to an app or activity or a view or view hierarchy, but we're going to focus on app and activity level theming here, since the next section goes into view and view hierarchy theming in more detail. And typically, you apply a theme in the Android manifest file on an app or an activity, and when you do Android:theme on an app or activity, it uses context.setTheme under the hood. And this is usually called for you before the activity.onCreate, because it is not a dynamic style, so it needs to be provided before inflation time. So if you want to do this programmatically, make sure you call it before the activity.onCreate. And something to note is that this is a terribly named method, so it doesn't replace the theme underneath it, it applies the theme on top. So themes are almost always applied, they're not set. And it's something to be conscious of. So let's take a look at an example of a theme. If your app has UI, then you've probably seen something like this before. And it's important to note that the attributes that you see here are theme-level attributes, like color primary, color secondary, etc. And if you were to try to use a color primary in a style or a text appearance, it's not going to work, because it's a theme-level attribute. And I know for sure I've done this before. And something cool that you can do is that you can reference styles in your theme. So over here, I'm setting this card view style attribute to this round card view style. So I'm saying, hey, by default, I want all of the card views in my app to use this round card view style. And this is why this card view style attribute is known as a default style attribute. And the style that it's pointing to, the round card view style, is known as the default style. And you can do this for almost any widget, like text input layout, buttons, etc. So anything that you want to style universally in your app, be it color, type scale, widget styling, etc., you can put it here. And if you want to apply a theme, you can use the Android:theme attribute on either an application, activity, view, or view hierarchy. And a powerful feature that comes with using themes is that you can reference them almost everywhere: drawables, color state lists, styles, etc. And in this case, I'm referencing it in a color state list. And I'm saying, when enabled, I want the color to be color secondary. When disabled, I still want it to be color secondary, but with an alpha of 0.6. And I'm able to reference this theme level attribute with this question mark */ syntax. You can actually drop the */, that's optional. You can just do it with the question mark. And what this does is it looks up the color secondary in the current context, because this color secondary could have been defined in the app theme, the activity theme, at the view level, the view hierarchy level. This will look up the correct color secondary for you. And what this means is that you don't have to hard code a lot of the colors in your app, because if you want to change it for certain cases, you can just overwrite the color secondary in that context. And you might be wondering, okay, but why would I want to do this? This is so that the next time you go through a rebranding, all you have to do is just update the colors in one place in your theme, and it will propagate out into your app correctly. If you used hard-coded colors like blue, white, etc. throughout your app, when you update the new colors of your brand in your theme, it's not going to propagate out that well. You lose out a huge benefit of theming. Also, if you ever want to support night mode in the future, then referencing theme attributes can really help, because when night mode is set, it uses a theme that you provide. And if you're using theme level attributes for your colors through your app, when night mode is set, the colors will automatically flip and things will be great. But if you're using hard-coded colors everywhere, then it's not going to be so easy. So as much as possible, avoid hard coding anything that you can reference from your theme. All right, so when should you use themes? If you want to apply a style to all of the child views in a view hierarchy or activity, etc., you should think, aha, this looks like it's a job for a style. Or if you want to implement a robust design system, theming can really help you here, because you can enforce your brand colors, type scale, widget styles, etc. from one place, and you can make sure that all of these components have consistent styling, so that you don't end up with 10 different kind of grays that just look slightly different from each other, or 10 different kind of greens that don't have any meaningful differences from each other. We actually ended up having this problem because we didn't really use theming properly, and you can really use it to be strict and enforce your brand. Don't be like us. Use theming properly. So this wraps up app and activity level theming. Let's now move on to view level theming, which can be known as a theme overlay. And it's nothing but a theme. Lollipop introduced view level theming, and it's backported to API 14 with the help of Android X. And now you can do Android:theme on a view or view hierarchy. And when you do this, it uses the context theme wrapper under the hood. And what this does is it takes the theme ID that you're applying on the view, and it applies that theme on top of the base context theme, which might be your activity or app theme. And the attributes that you provide in the view level theme, they override those same attributes in the base context theme, and the rest of the attributes remain untouched, and they retain their original values. So it is in this way that the view level theme is being overlaid on top of the base context theme, and that's why it's known as a theme overlay. So let's take a look at an example. You can apply a theme overlay with the good old Android:theme attribute, because it is nothing but a theme, except that it only contains the subset of values that you want to apply on top of the base context theme. And in this case, I want everything to look exactly the same, and I only want to override the color primary. I don't need to inherit from the app theme or the activity theme because this is just going to override that one thing anyway. So it's just an optimization, essentially. So when should you use theme overlays? Again, if you want things to look exactly the same and you want to just override a few attributes from the existing theme, then you can use a theme overlay to do that. Or if you want to invert the theme for a view or view hierarchy, then you can use theme overlays to do that as well. So in case you have, let's say, a light-themed activity and you want to have a dark-themed toolbar, which is dark background, light text, you can just apply Android:theme on the toolbar with theme overlay.dark.actionBar, which is actually a platform-provided theme. And this way, your toolbar is now dark-themed, the rest of your activity is untouched, and it's light-themed. So you can use it to invert certain subsections of your view hierarchy. And if you're using a single activity architecture, if you apply a theme at the activity level, it's just going to apply it everywhere, right? But maybe you want some fragments to be light-themed and some fragments to be dark-themed. Again, you can just inherit from theme overlay.dark or theme overlay.light that's given by the platform, and you can invert the fragments view hierarchy that way. There's no need to inherit from a full-blown app theme. All right, so this wraps up learning about the 4 main styling techniques in Android. But what is the order of precedence? If I were to say text color equal to blue in a text appearance, and text color equal to green in a style, and I apply it to the same view, which one's going to win? How many of you think the text appearance is going to win? All right, how many of you think the style is going to win? Wow, all right, so almost half. The style is going to win. And let's learn why that is. So for that, let's take a look at an example. This is an example of an app theme, and we're setting the card view style to this round card view style, default style. And this card view style attribute is known as a default style attribute because we're saying, hey, by default, we want all the card views to have this style. So what happens next? In order to understand this, let's take a look at the card view class. And it has a bunch of constructors, and we're only going to look at 2 of them. And the first constructor calls into the second one. And if you look closely, in the first constructor, the last parameter is a default style attribute. And it's r.attr.cardViewStyle, and we just set this in the app theme. And this is passed into the second main constructor, which is passed into this context.obtainStyled_attributes method. And this calls getTheme.obtainStyledAttributes, and this is essentially where the magic happens, and it's surprisingly well documented by Android. And so it takes in the attributes that you apply at the view level, which is the first parameter. The second one is the attributes that it supports. The third one is a default style attribute, which in our case is r.attr.cardViewStyle. And the last one is the default style res, which in our case is r.style.roundCardViewStyle. And it knows the theme level attributes because it's been called on the theme. So this method takes all of these inputs, and it then uses this styling hierarchy to make decisions where everything on top overrides everything at the bottom. So it first applies the attributes of the text appearance, then the theme, the default style, the style, and the view, which means that the attributes in the view override the attributes in the style, override the attributes in default style, the theme, and the text appearance. And this is why, in the example I gave you, with Android text color equal to blue in text appearance, and text color equal to green in style, this is why the style wins, because it is above the text appearance in this view hierarchy. And if you're not conscious of this styling hierarchy, it can be really frustrating to work with styles, because maybe you set something in a text appearance in a theme, but something in the default style is overriding it, and neither you nor anyone in your team set that attribute because it's set by the parent theme, so theme.appcompat or theme.material components. So it can be really hairy to debug this. So hopefully now knowing about this will make it slightly easier. So now we know about the styling techniques and we know about the styling hierarchy. I think we're now ready to migrate to the latest and greatest theme, the material component theme, so that we can take full advantage of material theming. So what is material theming? It is the ability to customize material design through 3 theming subsystems, typography, color, and shape, to best express your brand's identity. And in this case, you can see that it's just a button, but it can look so different based on color, typography, and shape. And we can do this by using the Material Components library, which is an evolution of the design support library because it contains shiny new attributes and widgets like the bottom app bar. So future updates no longer go to the design support library, they go to the Material Components library. So I suggest that you start using the Material Component library as soon as possible. If you migrate to Android X, it automatically does that for you. And when you do this, you are now ready to use the Material Component theme. You could still use it with the design support library, but it doesn't have the latest stuff. So I recommend that you migrate first, if possible. And just as you have theme.appcompat, you now have theme.materialComponents. It is built on top of appcompat. So appcompat is one of its dependencies. So when you migrate to the material component theme, you don't need to Command F and get rid of appcompat everywhere. Appcompat widget styles can work in harmony with material component styles. And there are shiny new attributes, some of which we're going to learn right now. And it's min SDK 14, compile SDK 28+, hopefully not a blocker for anybody. And the first theming subsystem that I'm going to talk about is color theming. And if you've ever opened some material design guidelines, you've probably seen something like this before that has primary, secondary, backgrounds, etc. But what does this even mean? And to understand that, let's take a look at an example of an activity that is styled with the base material component theme, so nothing has been customized here. And we're going to go over some of the interesting attributes one by one. The first one being color primary variant. This is similar to color primary dark in an appcompat world, and it's basically a variant of your color primary, usually a darker variant. Color primary is your main branding color. Background is the color behind scrollable content in Android, and in this case, it's the color behind the card view. colorOnSurface is a new attribute, and it's the color of material components, such as card views, buttons, sheets, menus, etc. And in this case, it is the color of the card view. And then you have colorOnPrimary, which is the color of content that goes on primary backgrounds, such as icons and text. And this is actually a really nice way to enforce accessibility in your app, because you can make sure that whatever text or icons or content that shows up on primary backgrounds has enough contrast and is actually readable. And this also can help with development. Hopefully, you won't see a dialog where you can't read the text because the text is the same color as the background. We have more control over color in general. Similarly, we have colorOnSurface, which is the color of text that goes on surface backgrounds. And then we have colorSecondary, which is your secondary branding color. It's similar to colorAccent in an appcompat world. And then you have colorOnSecondary, which is the color of content that goes on secondary backgrounds. And what you see here is directly available as theme-level attributes that you can start using. So this way, we have a lot more control over color in our app. The second theming subsystem, I want to talk about is shape theming. And a lot of the themable components in Android now have the material shape drawable as the background shape. And it uses edge and corner treatments to figure out its shape. And because of this, we can now theme shape universally in our app from one place. So for example, let's say you have something like this, and you want to change it to something like this, which is a bit ridiculous because it has cut corners on top and rounded corners at the bottom. Hopefully you'll do something better with shape. And something to notice is the cut corners on the text input layout are less intense than the corners on the button. So some components can interpret shape a bit differently. It can feel like a bug, so it's something that can help if you're conscious of it. So let's say we wanted to do this for all the text input layouts and buttons in our app. Then we can make use of some new attributes regarding shape. There are 3 of them. Theme-level attributes. There's shape appearance small component, medium component, and large component. Small components are components like buttons and text input layout. Medium is card views and dialogs, and large component is nav drawers. And in this case, we only care about the small component because we're dealing with text input layouts and buttons. And then we can set this to a style. And we have to make sure that it inherits from the correct parent so that it has the correct look. And in this case, it's material components.small component. And then we can say, OK, I want top left and top right to be cut. I want bottom left to bottom right to be rounded. And I want corner size to be ATP. And this way, all of the small components in our app will now have the same shape. And so it's really powerful that we can shape components together in Android. And this is not super easy to do by hand like previously. So the last theming subsystem I want to talk about is typography theming. And if you open the material design documentation, you'll see a type scale something like this. There's around 12 of them. And now these translate directly into theme-level attributes. So if your designer reads the material design documentation, which hopefully all our designers do, and comes to you and says, hey, I want all of the toolbar text to be headline 6, you can now just use text appearance headline 6. What a concept. What you see now in the documentation is just readily available to you. And if you want to customize it, maybe you want to apply a font, you can inherit from the headline 6 parent style, apply the font using Android::font family, and then you can set it in this theme to that style. And now all of the headline 6 text in your app will be uniformly styled with whatever customizations you want. So again, we have a lot more control over text in our app, and with color and shape as well. So hopefully you are sold and you want to migrate to the material component theme. So let's do that. You probably have something like this in your app, theme.appcompat.whatever. You probably want to change it to something like this. So you essentially want to swap out appcompat for material components, one line of change, and now your app is inheriting from the material component theme. That's it. This talk is done. Bye. Well, this is Android development. Things rarely work with just one line of change, and material theming was no different. You won't believe what happened next. Our buttons lost icons, the text shrunk, they changed background color, the dialogue got this puffy look, the dialogue buttons. And in this dialogue, we're actually asking our customers to pay us money by subscribing to our service. And no one's going to give us money with ugly buttons like that. And then our text input layouts turn into this ugly gray mess. And apparently, this is the new default look for text input layouts. So you can say that we had a thing or two to fix. And I'm going to go over how we fixed some of it, because you might run into it as well. And the first thing to note when you migrate to the material component theme is that all the buttons are inflated as material buttons by default. And this is currently with buttons only. So what this means is that if you were using Android::background before to style the background of your buttons, that does not work anymore. You have to use background tint now, and it only takes a color or color state list. And if you want to apply consistent button styling to all of the buttons in your app, then you can use this material button style, default style attribute in your theme, and now all of the buttons in your app will have this button style. However, something to note is that in this material component world, the color of the button background by default is the color primary. And now, with our knowledge of styling, we can use this as well to style our buttons. We can use a theme overlay to style the button. So in the theme overlay, we can just override the color primary, set it to the button, and now you have a button with a different color or a bunch of buttons in a view hierarchy. What if you wanted all of the buttons in your app to have this non-primary color? Then you have another option called the material theme overlay attribute that you can set on a default style. And this is a new attribute that was introduced with material theming because of a deficiency in the Android styling system, because currently you can't set Android::theme in a default style. So you can do app-wide widget-level styling, but you can't do app-wide widget-level theming. So if you wanted all the buttons in your app to use color primary green and all the text input layouts in your app to use color purple, there's currently no way to do that until now. So let's see how this works. Material theme overlay is just an attribute that you can set in your style, and you can set it to a good old theme overlay. And in this case, I am just overriding the color primary to be midnight because I want all of the buttons in my app to not have this midnight as the background color. And in order to affect all of the buttons with this, you want to use the default style attribute in your theme, and you can set it to this button style that contains this material theme overlay defined. And so this way, now all of the buttons in your app will have this midnight color, and will have this color primary of midnight, but the rest of your app will remain untouched. So this is a really convenient addition to the Android styling system. We can do more now. All right, and I don't know if you remember, but these buttons had lost their icons. We were able to restore it by using this material components.button.icon style, and we were able to set the icon using the icon attribute, so no more drawable start nonsense, and I was able to set the icon tint as null. So essentially, the icons are tinted by your color primary by default, and if you want to keep the original color of the icon like we wanted to with the Google icon, we set it as null. And there's also icon gravity, icon padding, icon size, etc. So you have a lot more control over this icon versus in the drawable start universe. And there's many more button styles, like outline button style, text button style, etc. So a lot of things that we were doing by hand, they're ready-made styles available for us now. And last but not the least, we were able to fix the text input layout mess by using the text input style, default style attribute in our theme. And we set it to the outline box style, which is the style you see on the right. So by default, the style is the filled box style, which is the gray style you see on your left. But we thought the outline box looked better, the outline box style looks better, and so we changed it to that. And by default, the color selection is the color primary. If you want to override this for all of the text input layouts, you can use material theme overlay, or if you want to do it in specific cases, you could use a theme overlay to do that. So as you can see, we had a few things to fix in our app. And depending on the state of your app, maybe your styles are very structured and you don't have that many screens, or you have tons of screens and your styles are all over the place. Migrating to the material component theme might take some time. So I suggest you first try it and see how it goes. If it looks like it's going to be a very time-consuming endeavor, I suggest that you use a bridge theme. And a bridge theme inherits from the app compat theme but it has the new theme attributes defined. So you can start using material components one by one as and when you're ready. So when you inherit from a bridge theme, nothing will visually change. But you can start using material components. For example, you could use material button style in your theme and set it to a material button style, and all of your buttons will now be using material button styling, but everything else will remain untouched. If you were to use a material component with an app compat theme, there's a chance that your app might crash, because material components look for theme attributes to be defined in some of the new theme attributes to be defined in a theme, and if it doesn't find them, it might crash. So this also safeguards you against that. You really have nothing to lose when you inherit from a bridge theme. And in order to do that, you just swap out app compat for material components, and you append bridge at the end, and voila, you are now inheriting from the material component bridge theme. And I know this is just one line of XML change, but I promise this actually works. If it doesn't, let me know. All right, so I'd like to leave you with some debugging tips, because often when you're styling in Android, things can look pretty funny. And in order to fix that, you first want to find the attributes that matter. And maybe you have a blue, and you don't know where it's coming from, right? I would first start with the documentation. It's actually better for the material components now, but sometimes that may not work, in which case, first look in your view, see if there's an attribute defined or a style defined on it. If not, look into your Android manifest, see if there is a theme defined on the activity. If not, look at the app theme, go into the default style for the widget that you're styling, and unfortunately, you're gonna just have to dig in to see where that's coming from. It would be great if we could just all memorize the attributes and what type of attributes they are, but that's just not possible. We're not robots, right? And then find out what the attributes being applied as. Is it a theme level attribute, a style level attribute? We know that if you throw in a theme level attribute, such as color primary into a style, it doesn't work. So if you found the attributes that matter, that's great, but we have to know how to apply them. So we have to know what kind of attribute they are. And then refer back to the order of precedence, which is that colorful rectangle thing I showed you earlier. Not all styling techniques are created equal, and even though you're setting the right attribute in the right place, it still may not work because something above it in the hierarchy is overriding it. If you're using a material component theme, then extend from a material component style to see if that fixes it. As you saw, that was our fix for some of the things, so it's worth trying. And if you tried all of this and it still doesn't work, there are bugs. It may not be you, it might be them. The latest material component stuff is in alpha, so go in, see if a bug is already filed. If not, go ahead and file it. The Google devs that work on this are very active on Stack Overflow and GitHub. And here are some useful links for reading, highly recommended if you get the time. And this wraps up the talk. Hopefully you'll have a bit more fun styling on Android, and it'll be a little less frustrating. My slides are at that link, and also in my Twitter, Anita3791. It's pinned on top. And if you have any questions, please come by and talk to me. Shout out to Nick Butcher for helping me with the content, and Cyril Mortier. I was actually at his talk at Android Makers last year, I think in this very auditorium. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.